All right, boys, we're going to give them 3, and here's how this is going to work. Spring practice a week away. Give me 3 things that you want to hear coming out of spring practice. And you're not going to see it. You're going to have to hear it. Okay, we might, maybe, get some practice availability, but I doubt we'll be able to even bring a camera in that joint this spring. So you're not going to be able to see much. You're going to have to hear it from sources. So what are you hoping sources are talking about this spring?
I want to hear some positive Gunnar Stockton noise. Because quarterback room is what it is with Carson, Beck, and you got Puglisi, but you really need to know Gunnar Stockton is going to be able to be that QB2 for you in case crap does hit the fan at some point in the season. You know that you can roll him in, and just knowing like what the future is, get a better outlook of that quarterback room. We've heard what Puglisi did early on in the early practice days when he arrived on campus. But I want to hear some noise about Gunnar Stockton specifically. Feed me everything you got on Damon Wilson this offseason. I think that's another player that people are really excited about going into year 2 for him, and just a guy that feels like year 1 to year 2 could be a massive leap, especially knowing some of the guys are going to be departing from the roster after 2024, knowing that he's going to be a guy this year and will be a guy for you in 2025 as well. That would be some comforting things to hear in spring practice. And then not just cornerbacks, safeties. I want anything and everything on the defensive back room in totality. Every single one of them, because you have questions at defensive back. You have questions at safety along Malachi Starks, and you need to know what the heck is going on at star. Anybody and everybody in that defensive back room, that's the noise that I want to hear.
You just want the deets on the DBs.
All of it.
Hey, that boy Jay Will. Give him 3. What do you got for me, Curb?
So the first one is I want to hear that Carson Beck is lighting it up. Like he's visibly improved from last season. Last season was his first season starting. He did a great job, but this offseason he's had a lot of time. There's high expectations coming in for him. People say he might be the first overall pick. People say he might be a Heisman winner. I want to be able to hear that, hey, he's on the right track in spring practice. Another one is I want to hear that there's someone emerging at the corner position. It doesn't have to. I don't care who it is. Just that someone is kind of making a name for themselves. Like, hey, he has a really good chance to be the starter this year. I think that this is the first time, at least under Kirby Smart, where there's kind of not really been a designated one at the corner position at all. You have 2 guys that kind of have to step up. So I really want to see someone kind of take advantage of this spring practice. And then the third one, I just want to hear that receivers are eating. You went and you brought in a lot of these guys from the transfer portal over the last 2 seasons. It's finally time to say, like, hear inklings about, wow, the receiver core looked elite today. Like, they looked unstoppable. And then a bonus one, I have a fourth, is just I don't want to hear anything about injuries, which is kind of a given.
Yeah, I put that in the don't want to hear category. Hey, Kirby. Give him 3. My bad. You mentioned Carson Beck. Some of the conversations we overheard from the scouting community about Carson and Indy were rather perplexing, where there were conversations about, whether or not Carson has an opportunity to go 1-1 or whether or not Carson is ever worthy of 1-1.
Right.
There's some people in the scouting community that are like, he's closer to Drake May than he is Caleb Williams. And then there's some in the scouting community that think he's closer to C.J. Stroud than he is Drake May. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So I think there's going to be some playing himself into – I think he's already played himself into a first-round eval. I think if he just goes and does the status quo this fall, he'll remain that. He'll be a top 25 pick. Very akin to what J.J. McCarthy's got going on this year, just in terms of the measurables, the mindset, the ability to talk football, make accurate throws, be a great decisive decision maker, all those good things. They make you a first-round draft pick. What makes you guaranteed 1-1 is transcendence, right? And I think that is what we have the opportunity to see from Carson this year. And it starts, like you said, with spring practice. I just don't want to hear that it's good. I want to hear that it's freaking great. I want to hear that it's phenomenal. I want to hear stuff that I heard out of, in 2019, LSU knew that they were going to do that because they knew what they had in Joe Burrow and that wide receiver core. It would be great to hear that type of confidence and level of ripping it from Carson Beck this spring. All right, I got 3 totally different ones from you guys, which is rare considering we didn't do any pre-show planning on these 3. I want to hear that Rodri Robinson is a monster, okay, for no other reason than, I'm going to be honest with you, Roderick, or anybody in Roderick's camp listening tonight, you will never have a better opportunity to make this room yours than what you have this spring. Okay, Trevor Etienne's coming in learning the system. He got there about 2 months ago, about maybe a month and a half ago. A month and a half ago and some change, whatever it was. He ain't been there long. You have been, okay? Branson Robinson not going to suit it up this spring. Andrew Paul still kind of getting comfortable coming back from that sucker. I'm telling you right now, Rodri Robinson is going to get a lot of first-team opportunities that might not be presented when he looks up in October if he's not careful. So I better hear for Rodri Robinson's immediate and long-term future in this backfield that he is having a great spring practice because I believe he has all the ability to do so. He has all the talent in the world to do so. And finally, okay, he's going to have all the opportunity to do so this spring. So I want to hear great things about him. And by the way, going to be a source's favorite. I've been joking about how we don't get an opportunity to go in those buildings. But there's a variety of different sources. There's a variety of different people that are at that, practice, right? Whether it be coaches, whether it be trainers, whether it be water folks, whether it be whoever you talk to, there's only a small portion of them that are actual football knowers. You know what I mean? Like actual people in the buildings helping with decision makers. The rest of them are passerbys that are just watching the oohs and the ahs, right? It's why you always hear the great things. So-and-so is dominating. Well, so-and-so looks really, really good in pads. Roderick looks really, really good in pads. Okay, so a lot of these sources are going to walk into that building and be like, whoa, Rodri Robinson. I hope to hear that from him this spring. Needs to be a great start to his season this spring right here. And then the other one I have, the second one right here, I want to hear terrifying news out of Michael Williams playing Jack. I want to hear that it is devastating. I want to hear that they can't figure out how to stay in front of him in pass protection. Because not that it really matters, okay? It does, but it doesn't, because Glenn Schumann found out a way to have a top 5 defense last year, despite the fact that they had, I think, a bottom 120 in sack production football team last year. Okay, so they didn't get after the quarterback. They didn't get the quarterback down. We can make all the excuses in the world, and we can give all the explanations in the world about how they play systems that don't throw the ball, don't hold the ball against them. They get it out quick, yada, 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 yada. We do all that stuff around here. We show you that stuff on tape. All that being said, in 2021 and in 2022, they got after the quarterback. In 2023, they did not. Okay, so something to change that would be hearing this spring that Michael Williams is doing freaky shit. We're not going to be able to block him. No one's going to be able to block him. Automatic 10 sacks. If Michael Williams is an automatic 10 sacks guy, you have already vaulted yourself in that top 60 next year in that department. And third, and maybe most importantly, I want to hear not that Oscar Delp looks good. I don't want to hear that Oscar Delp's continued to grow as a blocker. I don't want to hear that Oscar Delp has even become a leader in the room. I don't want to hear all that's good stuff. What I want to hear is that Oscar Delp is getting loose, that Oscar Delp is explosive, that Oscar Delp is taking balls for 60 yards, that Oscar Delp is splitting safeties down the middle of the field, that Oscar Delp is impossible to tackle when the ball is in his hands. Because if I start hearing all that stuff, then the Oscar Delp that we knew coming out of high school that morphed into this end-of-line tight end because his football team needed him to do so has now melded together. And now we have this great end-of-line blocker with this really, really elite athlete because that's exactly what he is. He's a 6'5", 250-pound, massive human that is a 4.55 runner. That is a tremendous athlete. That is what Theo Johnson is, and that's what Theo Johnson just walked away at being one of the greatest testing tight ends in the history of the combine. I'm not saying Oscar Delp is 100% of that. I'm saying Oscar Delp's about 90% of that. And I want to see that testing data that we all know about him. I want to see that physical ability that we all know about him. I want to see it pop this spring, and the only way we hear that is boom, 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 explosive, explosive, explosive.
I'm going to need it from that tight end room this year.
Absolutely. Hey, myself, give him 3.